Brendan from RightOffRussell.com, and right now we're being joined by Aaron Wilson, who is a man of many talents, covers the Ravens for the Carroll County Times, has also contributed to ProFootballTalk.com, and writes on the VIP subscriber board at Scout.com for the Ravens. Thanks for joining us, Aaron. How you doing?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Just a couple quick questions about, kind of the off-season overview and, a couple questions about maybe the OTAs today. Coach Harbaugh, as we know, is beginning his second year as the coach. He came in and obviously had a different mentality than Brian Billick last year. What have you seen from him, this year that's different from last year, his level of comfortableness with the players, coaches, and just an overall view of how he has changed from this year to last year?
I think he's more comfortable. I think he's less confrontational. And I think the guys bought into his system. They realize that it works, evidenced by the winning. And they get to the AFC title game last year and turning around after a really, a low spot under Brian Billick the previous season. And I think it was time for a change. I think Harbaugh is smart about pulling it in a little bit and not maybe driving these guys as hard as he did last year when he was trying to change the culture and really remake the team and his imprint. And now I look at things and I think that John's got a lot of guys that have bought into what he believes in, and he's got a lot of leaders and, not just the young guys, but the veteran players have been very important to John's leadership with guys like Ray Lewis buying in and really supporting what John wants to do from a discipline standpoint. Has it been all peaches and cream? No, and you've seen guys that didn't really want to, make changes, guys like Chris McAllister, they're no longer here. And, we saw, John, the way he dealt with Willis McGahee quietly behind the scenes and wasn't entirely thrilled with how Willis was conducting himself in terms of off-season conditioning and just the way he was playing and, not being around much for the off-season activities a year ago. And he didn't play. He was on the bench. It wasn't all health concerns. That wasn't the only reason that you didn't see much of Willis McGahee at times last year. Had to do with discipline and, them being on the same page. So I think that it's less intense in just in the sense that you've got John dialing it down a little bit. They still work just as hard, if not harder, but I don't think there's the tension that you saw a year ago among the players as they were trying to prove themselves to Harbaugh, and some guys that were resistant, including Samari Roll a little bit last year. Now they seem to be on the same page.
Right. And speaking of that, Willis McGahee, I know he showed up today. Obviously, there was a pretty big to-do made of last week not being at the OTAs, and as you mentioned just a second ago, a little surprising from a guy that was in the doghouse last year. I know he showed up today after being in Vegas last week, not during the session, but before it.
Right.
Not exactly the good way to start off a season. That it's a pivotal one for McGahee. Obviously, his contract is a burden right now, and one of the reasons he's still here is they can't cut him. What do you think? Harbaugh's view of Willis McGahee is today? June of 2009.
I think he's a bit angry and frustrated, and disappointed with Willis, and he didn't really try to hide that. When I asked him about Willis today and if he was encouraged by him getting back on the field, which you would think was a fairly innocuous thing. It was not a loaded question. I wasn't trying to get him to rip Willis or anything like that. I didn't ask about Vegas or, why wasn't he here last week. It was just, hey, he's back on the field. What'd you think of that? And he said, essentially he gave a really short answer to my question. I don't think he was angry being asked the question. I think he just didn't really try to hide how he felt, that Willis should have been around. He says he hadn't been around for a week and a half. So he said, I don't know. Yep. I don't know how to gauge that. So it was obvious it was a sore point. It was not a topic that he really wanted to really get far into, and fair enough. I think he said a lot with his body language.
Yeah, I've heard you say numerous times in some of the other news that pretty much no matter what, this is McGahee's last season here. You still feel that way, obviously, probably since of what you got the answer today?
Yes, I think that I've heard from people even close to Willis McGahee that if not for the contract, he's aware that he would no longer be on the roster. That's just a good fit. So what I expect, another uneasy alliance.
I gotcha.
He'll be around, but, maybe he won't be starting. Ray Rice was taking the reps with the ones today. It was Willis's first day back, but, Ray Rice has gotten bigger. They're really happy about Ray Rice, and would it shock me if he was the starter? No, that wouldn't surprise me.
Right. Going into the off season, Aaron, just a couple of the biggest needs you think that the team had going into the offseason, to the draft and free agency, and do you think they addressed those needs successfully, specifically, the wide receiver and cornerback issues?
I don't think they've necessarily upgraded in any way at wide receiver. They're just banking on improved health and comfort level with Joe Flacco going into his second season that things will improve. But yeah, they have not actually, made any changes whatsoever to, really say that all of a sudden the receiving core is going to be more dynamic. You just cross your fingers. You hope that Demetrius Williams will get healthy and remain healthy, that Derek Mason gets over his shoulder injury, that Mark Clayton doesn't have nagging injuries, and he plays more consistent football, that Marcus Smith is able to handle the pressure of playing in an NFL game and actually catch the football, something he couldn't do last year. So I think the receiving core is a big question mark. I think Kelly Washington, that helps some, but we just don't know. He only caught one pass last season. He did block a punt, and I think he'll help the special teams. And maybe he's better than some of the receivers the Ravens have. We'll see. I expect him to challenge for the third role, but to say that they've upgraded will probably be an overstatement. In terms of the tight end position, major question mark. Todd Heap, just wondering if he has much left. There's people whispering around the Ravens that he may not, really have anything left in him. He may not have that explosiveness anymore. He certainly lacks the durability. That goes without saying. They've got L.J. Smith's come out of a sports hernia surgery, and he's about a month out from being really 100% or close to it. And we saw him do a little bit more today. Saw some encouraging signs from him, but he's still not quite there. But I think that he'll help them. I think that was a good acquisition. Edgar Jones has played very well in the organized team activities, and I think he's going to help them some. I like Devon Drew. I think that's a good draft pick. So it's kind of a mixed bag at some of the positions of need. I feel like offensive tackle has been addressed pretty well with Michael Orr, their first-round draft pick. Very impressive young football player, but there will be some growing pains. Lacks the experience of a Willie Anderson who retired. But I look at things as being fairly solid.
Mark? And thanks to Aaron Wilson for joining us and giving a little bit of insight into the Ravens off season. Hopefully we'll be able to get back with him in training camp and have a little more information.